Greetings everyone, Gabriel here, and this is going to be a video with general messages for Sagittarius for the month of December 2019. I've been reading Lenormand for about 6 or 7 years and tarot for longer than that. And I noticed that there wasn't a whole lot of Lenormand, or I guess I should say Grand Tableau, being read on YouTube, or at least in English. So I thought I would give this a shot. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. What are the messages for Sagittarius for December 2019? Messages for Sagittarius for December 2019. Oh. Looks like these cards are ready. And I'll do my best to make sure these are all in frame. First card is the Fox, Stork, the Whip, Fish, Child, the Birds, the Key, the Waves, and the Moon. Bouquet, the Clouds, Lilies, the Tree, the Snake, Letter, the Scythe, and the Tower, the Bear. Stars, our first significator, the Man, is here. The Ring, Garden, the Anchor, Dog and House, the Heart, and our second significator, the Woman card, is here. Mountain, and the Coffin, the Rats, Book, the Writer, and the Sun, Clover, the Cross, and the final card is the Ship. Bear with me while I try to adjust so that you can see as much as possible. I realize that's going to be impossible, but we'll do our best. So Sagittarius, I always begin these videos by explaining how my process works, and this is going to be especially for those of you who are already familiar with the Lenormand system and how one navigates a Grand Tableau. So of these cards, we have two significators here, the Woman and the Man. Normally in a one-on-one reading, If the person sitting across from me is a woman, I look at the woman and the placements around her. If the person's a man, we look at him and the placements around him. Because these are general messages for everyone of the sign of Sagittarius for the month of December, and because we're looking for salient themes throughout the entire month, we'll use these as general starting places. So Sagittarius, the first thing that comes to mind is that December is going to be a month where you are, how should I say it, cleaning house in the figurative sense. The first placement, I guess, that I'm drawn to is that of the key, scythe, and house. So the key signifies that which is necessary, right? And that which is required of you. The key unlocks things. In a grand tableau, looking at the placements around the key give you an idea of the things that are necessary of you during this time. We have key. Right next to the key is the card of choice, the Ways card. It's interesting because the Ways card shows a crossroads, but really not like a figure X crossroad, but more of a figure Y, where you have to choose left or right, because going straight is not an option. Below the key is the scythe. The scythe is a tool of utility, and it separates the grain from the chaff, that which is useful and that which has no value. And right next to the scythe, we have the tower, which kind of gives me this feeling of being cold and being removed, being very objective. If the scythe is making cuts from your life or making executive decisions, gavel down, the tower gives me this sense of being emotionally removed from it. Just below the tower is the heart, which oftentimes the heart can represent romance, but really it can represent the entire array of emotion, or even emotion itself. It's your emotional body. Next to the heart, we have the house. So on a surface level, the house is your home, but in an archetypal way, when we're looking at a reading like this, a general reading, for me, the house represents that which is inner, your inner life, the hidden part of yourself. And when we're looking at this kind of pairing of two, key and ways, scythe and tower, house and heart, it gives me this sense that it is going to be very necessary for you to make a decision that cuts something, or perhaps a group of people, out of your life. I realize, unfortunately it's taken me a while to record these videos, but, we're about a week into December, so you could be already experiencing this. For most people, unless your life is fraught with just things popping off, this is probably something that's been brewing for quite some time. I realize that we're at the end of the year, so maybe you've been experiencing this for quite a while. And all of these placements are close to one of the significators. And we see here, crowning you, we have the bear, and above the bear is the moon. So the bear brings to mind a sense of personal power. The bear is your personal agency, your ability to express your greatest wish for yourself. Your ability to take care of yourself is the bear. Perhaps on its shadow side, it is stubborn, but ultimately the bear is an expression of power. You know, pardon my language, but everybody's got to be a motherfucker every once in a while. It's just the way this world is. And below, if we're kind of, continuing this pattern here, on the root level below you, Clover, Cross, and the Ship. Clover brings to mind the strike while the iron is hot type message, right? It's a window of time. Some of the old Lenormand books refer to the clover as little luck. And I always kind of interpret that as being able to instantly see a situation for what it is and how you can use it to benefit you. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes a difficult pill to swallow is the realization that in this life, you have to use people, situations, and things sometimes before you are used yourself. And the placement of the bear, especially with the moon, it ties in that emotional aspect, and we have the heart here as well. It kind of gives me this idea that you're reclaiming your emotional well-being after being tied up in a situation, that you're finding it necessary to make difficult cuts from your life. And ultimately, during the month, if that's an energy that you've been experiencing for quite some time, and my intuition tells me that it is, the Tower is a long time, and the Ways card, it's a journey, right? Something has taken you to this place. During the month of December, you're going to experience that window where you are able to make those decisions that separate you from whatever sector of your life this is being made manifest. I do think that it's something, whatever sector it is, it's something that is tied in with interpersonal relationships. I realize all things are, but it's something that you've really put your heart into. You've really invested yourself into. The final card here, and I realize you can't see it, is the Ship. So the Ship is, I don't want to say a catch-all card, but it can mean a lot of different things. It's very, very nebulous. On its surface level, it represents travel, setting forth, going out, venturing into unknown territory, right? When you think about people who boarded a ship at the time that this oracle was created, it was a very uncertain process. The idea is that you got onto a boat and you cast forth, and eventually you wouldn't be able to see land anymore, and you'd see nothing but water. And you were operating under the faith that you would touch down in a friendly port at some time in the future. In that sense, it also brings up a desire, a yearning, wish, your soul's yearning for something else other than this present circumstance that you're living through. The Ship brings up the idea of, in Brazilian Portuguese, we say saudade. It's the idea of almost nostalgia for something that hasn't yet existed. That is the Ship. Right next to the Ship, we have the Cross. It brings to mind the idea of a critical period. This is something that you cannot escape from. It's also something that, obviously, we all have different spiritual paths, and I tried to reflect that in this as much as possible. But the Cross brings to mind things that are fated or things that are destined. This is a karmic pattern that is much bigger than you. It's much bigger than your story. It involves other people, other situations, the decisions they have made. In addition to your own decisions, to be fair. But we live in a world, populated with other people. And sometimes we get caught up in things that are perpetuated by decisions they make. Sometimes that appears like fate because you get caught up in it. The cross and the ship together give me this sense that this is a critical tipping point. Even if you don't believe in karma, it's a critical tipping point where you are spurned into action. I think we see here that this significator is in the 27th position, which places it in the house of the letter. That means that these two cards are intimately connected. If we're looking at this as a connector, we also see bear and dog as kind of the other two links. It brings to mind your sense of personal power, loyalty. What are you being loyal to? Letter is, on its surface level, it's messages, it's communication. I think it can also be the writing on the wall in a figurative sense. I mean, if we're looking on a topical level, I think many of you, I don't know, Sagittarians, I guess, Sagittarius people, perhaps this whole thing could be perpetuated by messages that you've received, communication that you've received. Above the letter is the birds, which is kind of a gossipy energy. In addition, next to the letter itself is the snake, which is venomous, right? So the snake is complications. The snake is a means to an end that ultimately makes everything else more complicated, right? These are two cards, well, I should say bird. The birds and the letter are two cards of communication. Next to them are the child, which is an infantilizing energy. On its shadow side, it can be immaturity. And below is snake, which is complications. I think for many of you, perhaps you've been experiencing maybe some hurtful talk from people around you. Again, trying to stay as general as possible while still giving specific information from the signatures that we see here. You know, if this is in your workplace, maybe there's a lot of gossip in the workplace, or backbiting, or, you know, it's a group of people that has become poisonous to you. And we see here from this placement here, you know, you're at the far right of the spread, and you're looking that way. You're looking out. All of this is behind you. It kind of reinforces that sense that, you know, even though we're looking at messages for December, the placements of the cards are what they are. And it gives me this sense that December is going to be you exiting from a year of backstory. A year where perhaps you've realized that you've misplaced your loyalties. A year where people whom you have been kind to perhaps have not been as kind to you. And you're in a position where your mind, however this has been made manifest, these cards give the message that your mind is fixed on expressing your personal power and you living out the things that you need right now. And over here, we have our second significator, pardon me. Around him, ring, rats, coffin, mountain, stars, bouquet, clouds, lilies. It brings to mind that this is a secular pattern. This is something you have experienced before. And it's something that has caused you a great deal of anxiety and rumination. A great deal of, it's taken up a lot of mental space. Your emotional body. Here we have feelings of isolation. The stars, on their shadow side, it is true that within Lenormand, some of the cards are positive, some of them, many of them are neutral, and some of them are inherently challenging. The stars, on its shadow side, it's something that is cool and removed. The stars are far off. And below them we have the mountain, which brings to mind an impasse, a sense of isolation. Being out in the wilderness. The coffin brings to mind a sense of being shut off as well. It's a sense of finality. And the rats, anxieties, that kind of piecemeal type anxiety that eats away at you little by little. One piece at a time. And it's interesting because next to the rats is the book, and above the book is the garden. So the garden is the outward self. It's your social life. It's the other people around you. Your public persona, the face that you put on to show the rest of the world. It could be other people as a whole. So if either of the signifiers are you, the garden is everybody who is not you. The book is Items That Are Hidden. It brings to mind, I think for many of you of the sign of Sagittarius, you're finding there's going to be a great deal of flux in your social circle, in your personal life. Again, here we have the tree, right? This is a karmic cycle. A tree is something that was planted in the past as a seed and has now grown and borne fruit. I think for many of you, this kind of reiterates that cycle that I said here, kind of pinging off of the ways. It brings to mind that we're at the end of a long road and you're fed up and you've had enough and you're ready to sever ties. But nonetheless, I should say, down here, Rider and Sun. So the Rider is energy that is being made manifest in your life. And the Sun is probably one of the most positive cards of all the 36. Warmth, vitality, upward and onward. The Sun brings life to all things. And I think that's a beautiful card when we think about where we are in the year, at the very end, ready to start anew. The energy coming into your life. Like I said, so we have you here at the very end, and we also have you here. The Death card. Well, not the Death card, but the Coffin card, the card of finality, the card of endings. Severing from the past, transitions. You're entering into a space of unknown. But nonetheless, you're fixed, you're anchored in your personal power, in a future that you know has to be better than what you have been through for the past 11 months. And ultimately, by acting in that, by anchoring yourself in your personal sense of self-agency and what you need, it's quite literally, it's like riding off into the sunset. I definitely have to say, I'm really excited for you, Sagittarius. These are positive placements, especially if this resonates with you from looking at how the year has been. I think these are indeed beautiful cards. Sagittarius, I'll be sending you a lot of good vibes throughout the rest of this month and into the new year. Again, my name is Gabriel. I love Lenormand, so this will probably not go anywhere. I hope to start doing this regularly for all of the signs every month as a regular thing. In addition to this, I also read an 18th century oracle called La Vera Sibilla. You might see that here as well. I also read Marseille style tarot, so that may make an appearance as well. In addition to these grand tableau spreads, if you read Lenormand yourself, I also have a lot of ideas on ways you can kind of do different things with the oracle, different ways you can use the cards, different interpretations of the cards themselves. I hope to kind of feature those things here. So if that interests you, definitely go ahead and check me out some more. Again, my name is Gabriel. Until next time.